Good morning, everyone. So I hope you are able to see my screen. And now we are doing a part 3 of our sessions on Cybersecurity Operations Center and what we have done in last 2 decades as a cybersecurity industry to evolve it from a security operations to what we call it as a Cyberfusion Center. So in this part of the session, we are going to discuss on the desired state under sorry what's the desired state of setting up a cyber fusion center or current generation SOC, and then how to do a as is study of our existing customer who may want to go for setting up a cyber fusion center, and while doing so what should be your design approach. Apart from that, I'll be covering in 2 slides a very unique proposition called managed security service provider, which is more contextually relevant to the organizations like ours, which is into the operations business of servicing the customers, and how the same operations can actually help customers who will not be able to set up their own security operations center, but they would want to outsource their security operations to any third party company like ours. So that will be covered in the last 2 slides of this part 3 of the session. But before I start the discussion on part 3, do you guys have any questions for so far whatever we have discussed? I'll open the questions part for next couple of minutes to take the questions from you guys. Any one of you, if have any questions. Okay, so far so good. But before I start, I will just quickly summarize in 5 minutes of the part 1 and part 2 discussion points. So far, whatever we have discussed, that when you put the cybersecurity controls into the infrastructure of any organization, be it a bank, be it a telecom, be it any other enterprise, that security controls, they start seeing the traffic and they start monitoring the traffic as per the policies defined on them. And that as a consequence of doing this work, they generate the log entries of each transaction. And since these security controls, be it network security control or an endpoint security control or a data integrity controls, all these points of security control, when they generate the logs, they are generating those logs individually on their respective consoles/dashboards. Then, as a human being who is looking at those logs individually, it is technically quite difficult for somebody to, one, understand multiple security products at one point of time, also look at the real-time logs which these individually the tools are generating, and as a result, that individual is expected to connect these dots that are hidden or are located in the log entries of those respective controls. Therefore, there was a very strong need to bring these logs together at one single place. And once these logs were brought together at one single place, we started to see the different challenges starting to appear, that these so many log entries, plus every log was speaking in its own language. And therefore, a new concept of normalizing those logs got introduced, where the important keywords or a metadata was picked up from each one of those log entries coming from the different security/network systems which were sending those logs. And then we started seeing that there were so many entries for the single event, which then gotten into an aggregation. So the aggregation function came, And that's how we started to evolve the security operations. And then maybe after a few years of normalizing the logs and aggregating the logs, the industry realized that still the human effort is so much to connect those dots which are individually hidden or are lying inside those respective controls outputs. So for that, the industry came up with a very strong solution called the correlation engine. And that correlation engine started automatically picking up those dots from those individual security controls log outputs, which were by then already centralized on one place, and then connecting those dots by the regular expressions or the rules, which we call as correlation rules. The industry moved from almost 2002 to 2013, almost a decade, with that very powerful solution. And all that gives an output to the operators, who are now called as SOC operators. The operators are of three different levels. Typically, the level one, who are watching the logs, monitoring them on 24/7 basis, and then trying to put some kind of a mitigation or an immediate response to those logs. Then there are level 2 engineers who actually triage that. Triaging is basically a function of creating multiple possibilities or the alternatives once they see a symptom of the system. And as a possibility, we understood that the workflows were added, that okay, if this particular event is having a higher severity, it should be dealt with like this, and if it is a medium severity, it should be dealt with like this, and if it is with the lower severity, it should be dealt like this. And then we understood that the ones which were having a critical severity, they were not being, there was too much dependency on a process and a human being. And that started getting more visible and vulnerable once we reached to a stage of 2010 onwards. Because in 2010, industry saw a very big attack called Stuxnet. And that was a very complex attack which had polymorphism as well as metamorphism of the attack vectors, which were changing their state in the different stage of the attack. And it went on for almost 18 months before it got actually to the last objective or the reason why that attack was started. And that would have actually been a big reason for various organizations to have started looking at the threat space or a threat spectrum differently. As a consequence of that, there was a strong pressure on the security operations teams to re-innovate themselves. And that in that innovation, it was expected that the action is what which was missing, and too much dependency was there on a people and process, should have to be given some response. And as a knee-jerk reaction, the first things which started to happen were that the knee-jerk responses were that okay, the organizations which were building the tools for SOC, they started to propose the automation and orchestration as the immediate response functions. But what has happened as that proposition, that since in the organizations, the multiple verticals were already in existence by then, like the vertical of network teams, the vertical of virtualization / VMware team, the vertical of compute applications team, and maybe the fourth vertical, the security team or the security operations team. All these verticals have their own bureaucratic challenges. And as a result, neither of the network applications or the servers team were comfortable for all the automation and orchestration actions which were pushed by or proposed to be pushed by security teams by virtue of the SOC tools. And that's why that didn't see a much light of the day. And people started to pick up the merits in this proposition and started to create a platform which can include all the three functions which are required for security operations, that is tools, people, and processes, and it allows the customization to every organization's needs. So automation and orchestration is not the well structured proposition for each organizations, because no clothing fit everybody, no size fits all. So that's what is the definition of that. So but we all know that at the end of the day we all need some size of t-shirt to wear. So therefore orchestration and automation is a very important function, but that cannot be just one single way or methodology to propose it to the people. So the platforms came, and platforms, the first thing which they were positioning was how they can include the SIEM's intelligence, then how they will include the globally aware intelligence, and that can help in enrichment of the existing intelligence which the local SIEM is collecting. And then action will be one part of it. And in the action itself, there will be a triage. Triage means there will be multiple choices. And every organization, depending upon their loosely coupled or tightly coupled teams, or the teams which are non-existent, or there are teams where some organizations have overachievement with the teams. They will not have only 4 teams, they might have 6 teams. They will have a separate team for Microsoft Compute, and they will have a separate team for VMware Compute. And those two will also have the boundaries between them. So some organizations are too much in the teaming. There's so many boundaries. So but the platform answers to everybody. So it's like that whatever orchestration and automation were doing, their merits were picked up, and then the platform was constituted and started to propose. Now that platform in today's time is called as SOAR, that is Security Orchestration and Automated Response, as opposed to only orchestration and automation. Response is a very, very important function. And that brings us to the final thing which I wanted to say, that time to detect an attack, which is delivered by SIM, and a time to respond to an attack will be delivered by a SOAR tool. So therefore, now in the current state of generation of SOC which we are building, there will be two primary pillars of the tools itself now, not single tool, but 2 pillars inside the tool capacity. One, the SIM, which is going to reduce, or which is going to work for a time to detect function, and then SOAR, which is going to work for a response function of time. And we all know that the time to detect plus time to respond should be less than or equal to the time for an attack to succeed. And to justify this empirical formula, we need these 2 tools, is the messaging at which I will now start the starting of session number 3 in the sequence of our 3-session series. I hope this summary has helped you guys, and we'll now start with what a current generation SOC or a Cyberfusion Centre looks like. If I am a consultant, what is the best thing I will tell to my team when they go on site and start talking to the customers? In which directions they have to think? This slide talks about that. And if we miss any one direction as the consultants, we miss the project objectives. So there will be 4 directional objectives, which will be picked from here in this slide. And these are telemetry, intelligence, and analytics, and orchestrate for an action. So we have to think in 4 dimensions. And all these 4 dimensions will absolutely be incomplete without people. No aircraft can land and take off without pilot in the cockpit. Yes, once it's in the equilibrium height, you can put it in the autopilot mode. So all your aircraft systems, they work in tandem in a machine learned model. But, and a security operations center is similar to this example which I have given you. Yes, by virtue of these four functions, it can work. But without people, it is absolutely an incomplete solution. So nowhere an attempt is made to substitute people, because this is also a misnotion in the market that some customers or some consultants, they believe that if we bring a platform, it will eat into the jobs. No, it will help you diversify the jobs. People will be there. So coming back to these four important elements, so telemetry, intelligence, analytics, and orchestrate the action. These are the four things which we need to achieve, and people are the horizontal function. So this makes us to discuss the five things in the next few slides. So what is a log collection telemetry? We need for security events, and for that, all the security controls which the customers have deployed, be it a firewall or a next generation firewall or a next generation threat prevention or an antivirus solution or an anti-bot solution or an anti-APT solution or anti-DDoS solutions, different solutions that are taken by the customer in the past so far in their journey and are actively engaged in their security functions. Therefore, such security controls, the first thing you have to see is that, are you going to collect the data from all of them? And if not, then you are going to miss. This is the message. If you're not collecting the data from all the security controls deployed, you are going to miss some picture. And let me tell you that all security projects never start with an assumption that I will collect the data from all of them. But as a consultant, you are supposed to know. You need to create a complete footprint, and you need to mention the available or the missing blinds or the existing blind spots. You will have definitely many reasons for not including all the security controls to take the data from. But you as a consultant are supposed to know that now, that what you are collecting and what you are not collecting and what's the reason for not collecting. So all that has to go in that sense. Then beyond security controls, you need to bring that, is your organization or the customer you are working with, can they be a victim of a DDoS attack? Of course, all customers can be the victim of a DDoS attack, but you as a consultant match the probabilities. Like for example, a bank or an e-commerce or an internet operating business sites, they are typically a much preferred target for the hackers for a DDoS attack than a simple company which is just publishing something. The gaming companies, the data streaming companies, or the companies like Zoom, all these companies are at the risk of a DDoS much higher than a pharmaceutical company or a manufacturing company. Because impacting a video conferencing company will create a much larger noise in the market than just impacting some pharmaceutical company by a DDoS attack. So you understand a DDoS spectrum for the customer, and then you dissect it, that what are the prevention mechanisms they have taken for DDoS prevention. Because DDoS protection solution is an on-prem solution, which you might have already considered in the security controls, because that you would see under that bucket. But on-prem solution is never ever sufficient. We all know that. You need ISP-based solutions. You might need a scrubbing centers. You might need a CDN solutions, content data delivery networks. So all these terms are beyond the scope of this session. You are supposed to know this if you are already not knowing this. So once we understand that DDoS spectrum, so we'll have to then move the on-prem anti-DDoS solution from under the bucket of security controls and bring it in the DDoS visibility control as a overall DDoS solution, because I want to position that telemetry has to be dealt with the different functions. Then we all know that the command and control is there, which can control the bots, and some bots might be sitting inside my network, participating in the CNC, who is sitting outside my network, to launch an attack on somebody which is not a target inside my company. That is one possibility. The other possibility could be that somebody has some bots in my company, somebody also has that CNC has some bots somewhere outside also, and then they are planning to launch an attack inside my company by virtue of the infected machines which the bot manager or the CNC is controlling from outside. Now, what happens is that typically a CNC will be a most importantly in the function of some domain or a URL. And the moment the security controls, which you have already deployed, they start to look at those numbers or those traffic patterns, the first reaction which a security team does is that they start blocking that domain, or they block that URL, which is good. Definitely it will take care of the problem of 8 out of 10 situations, and maybe 7 out of 10 situations. But what if the bot manager or a CNC is much smarter? He's a much advanced attacker or a hacker. And instead of having a single domain philosophy of a CNC, he has just built a domain generating algorithm pattern, DGA, which means one bot which has come inside your infrastructure or customer's infrastructure, when it connects to CNC, it has some logic already embedded in that infection, which has already compromised this machine called bot inside my infrastructure, and it starts creating running that algorithm, which will generate a new domain name, and the CNC will change the same thing at his level, and a new domain is created, and that's called as a domain generating algorithms. It's a very, very complex but a very matured attack pattern, but definitely in existence. So we'll have to find out that in my company, whom I am trying to address and give the SOC solution, what is their strategy to protect the domain generating algorithms? Are they at a risk? If it's a large enterprise, they are definitely at a very big risk of DGAs. So they might have deployed a very powerful DNS protection solutions or domain protection solutions. So then you will have to see that, yes, your security controls, either in the first bucket or in the third bucket, have already addressed this problem. So you will, as a consultant, focus on the DNS strategy of the company. And let me tell you, 60% of the customers you might deal with may not have a very strong DNS strategy because they may not need that. But the other 4 will be very strong proponents of this strategy. So then you'll have to figure it out, and in your strategy have to cover this dimension within when you are talking about the telemetry. Then comes another one, the network anomaly detection. So far, if you are following my sessions from the day 1, and maybe if this is your 6th session with me or 7th session with me, you might already be aware that we have been giving the references of the routers generating net flows. And if you guys have got a chance to look into this as a consequence of attending my sessions in your own self-study patterns, by now you would have understood that the net flows or the J flows, they give a very powerful understanding or visibility about the traffic flows. They give every client to server spectrum of the flow. And you know that if 500 users are sitting inside my office, by learning those patterns, all 500 will have almost common behaviors, because that's a business behavior. If my company has taken a Dropbox as an output where the files can be exchanged, and somebody brings something else as a new tools now, the NBAR will understand that this is an anomaly. It's not a normal behavior. Because out of 500, 499 only go to this. This one guy is going to somewhere else. Maybe he's trying to now leak the data, or so on and so forth. There are many possibilities of modeling this threat. I will not talk too much beyond this, but all this visibility come from the net flows. And the powerful tools which give this output are the routers and the switches, not the security controls. So you need to see whether your customer is a participant in this requirement, seeing at their threat profile, seeing their threat posture, seeing how much risk they carry, and how is their business seen by the outside world. And also some part of the anti-DDoS solution comes here, because there are some vendors who are mixing their anti-DDoS solution along with the NBAR. So maybe in such case, third and fourth bucket will be addressed commonly. Oh, sorry, second and fourth bucket, I'm sorry. Second and fourth bucket of telemetry has to be seen separately. Then comes that if the company where you are going to give this solution, are they really doing some lateral communications? What's the footprint of their virtualization? How much traffic is moving east and west? If yes, have they put in any lateral communication tools to collect the data and the patterns from the lateral communication? And mind you, the lateral communications can also be picked by network anomaly detector, which is the bucket number 4. So we'll see this. And then last but not the least, not many organizations you will talk to would have invested in this tool called UEBA. I am introducing this term, though I have been taking sessions for last 7 or 8 instances for the first time to you guys. User and entity behavior anomalies. So we all know that there are many desktops and the mobile users today we have who are doing common things. And with these common behaviors, the UEBA engine, which has an endpoint agent installed on each of these mobile and endpoint form factors, be it a desktop or a tablet or any other form factor, that once that agent gets installed, it sits beyond the next generation antivirus. So this becomes another agent. So what it does is it collects the behavior of each user. And maybe after 1 or 2 weeks of deployment, it learns almost 70 and 80% of my organization's behaviors. And once they start seeing any organizational behavior change, they start alerting. Now imagine if a ransomware just starts from one machine. It will start from an end compute for sure. And the moment it will start, the UEBA solution will start seeing some changes in the registry entry of that machine. And they start seeing somebody who is already infected trying to go and jump over to another machine to find out if that guy also has a possibility for an existing vulnerability, so that this same exploitation can work there, and you will have multiple machines one after the other starting to get infected. And the moment the UEBA starts seeing the pattern of registry changes, it can enforce the automatic fire cell rules. Some of the tools are capable, which will stop these infected machines from talking to other ones. And in a sense, it offers a auto remediation by containing them there. Or at least, if not auto remediation, it will at least start building up the heat map that this has happened. Now, UEBA itself is a very powerful SIEM equivalent tool, but for only relevant to end part or the end compute. In some occasions, like one of the projects which QS has picked up most recently, in the final stage of that project, once we reach there, we will be asked to integrate their most critical alerts from the UEBA into the SIM which we are rolling out there. So this part of the strategy has to be clear to you guys. That what is the LDAP and the EDR? EDR stands, actually the technology which brings all the user and entity behaviors together is called as EDR, endpoint detection and response. So once I have all this footprint now, I have completed my one function which is called telemetry. Okay. So you have to go as a consultant that diverse, which means you either learn by questions asking the customer, or you learn it from the different tools and outputs the customer will give you as to what is their telemetry footprint. And as I said, depending upon their security profile, you might decide which out of these has to be considered. And I have put them into the same priority. There is a definite reason to give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 numbers. You understand? So which means the customer might not start with you, or you should not start with the 6th point immediately without even talking the first point. And you should start creating the buckets. As much distinct your buckets are will be decided by how risky the business of the customer is. For a small company of 1,500 users, or small, medium-sized company, sorry, of 1,500 users, into a life sciences business, not doing any intellectual property-based business, they're just trying and testing the generic medicines, may not be at a risk, as opposed to the research company with 30 employees only, but having a critical intellectual property staying on the cloud operations of what they have taken as the infrastructure. So you'll have to see the profile of the company, not just the size alone, to understand which all solutions are required for them to be included into the SOC strategy. And that will define the log collection telemetry. And as I said, that even if all the 6 are important for this customer, you might do that into phases. And if you are forced to break that into the phases, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 will help you with that understanding. Then comes the second part, which is intelligence. When we are talking about intelligence, we have to break the intelligence into 3 parts, because every attack will have 3 states. And intelligence can be, if you look at the physical world, you will understand that in the physical crime world, there are 3 different intelligence. The before crime intelligence, during the crime intelligence, and then finally the post attack, that is the post event intelligence. And those intelligence, all the 3 elements of the intelligence are important. So every criminal will leave some input for the criminal agencies, criminal investigation agencies, to actually connect the dots and learn from. Same is the case with the cybercrime. In the cybercrime world, every criminal will leave some kind of logs or some kind of footprint in any one of these 3 stages, or all the 3 stages, or for all the 3 stages. And that's what is important for us. But that's not necessary that if I research every attack today, which has happened in last 1 year, you might not find that every attack has actually been dealt with having an intelligence for all these 3 stages. Very, very smart crimes may not have. They will leave very, very less footprint. Okay. So we'll have to see the spectrum of the attacks. But if I build up pyramid of understanding of attacks, then large number of attacks which would have happened in the last 1 year you would see that all the three stages of intelligence were definitely existent. And what are these three? Let's understand. So we know that most attacks or the cyber crimes which are planned, they will have some kind of a preparation done in the dark web monitoring. Now that preparation could be of multiple types, and I will give you some examples. One of the example could be that they will collaborate together. So few attackers will collaborate together before they want to launch an attack. Second, they might buy some stolen things which the other attackers prior to them have already put in there for a sale. So for example, just give me a minute. So for example, the somebody has just found out that one of the hospital's health records of some 500 people and will put it on there in the dark web, and he'll say that, okay, pay me 15 cents per record per day. So if you will come 3 times in 3 different days, pay me 15 cents per day. So what will happen? You'll be querying for the same as and when you are creating some of your own attack plan for against those 500 people. So all this is a part of a dark web. Same way, if they come to know about some financial records, they will push this there. So you can buy one time, or you can actually use them as a platform like SaaS, which means you are querying their platform. Every time you are querying per record, you are paying 15 cents. So this is what exactly, and 15 cents is just an example. Okay, some things are being sold even at $3 per record, which is like a credit card data, or a S3 bucket in AWS, tokens. Those are very expensive. So the stolen records are of no interest to somebody who has got a chance to steal them, but he will monetize them by making money in the dark web ecosystem. And with the Bitcoin and other digital currencies, it has become much more prevalent to do so. So that's one possibility. So if an organization seriously is intending to collect the intelligence, they will buy a dark web threat intelligence. And that dark web threat intelligence feeds will continuously keep on telling on every day that which of their assets, be it their CEO's email ID or a CFO email ID, or their domains, or their URLs, or their applications if they are into a financial business, which of them are at risk, which are being talked, which are the gossip of town inside the dark web. So those tools will bring that intelligence and bring it on my dashboard as a consumer of that information. So as a SOC consultant, you need to know whether the business of my customers whom I'm building a security operations center falls in this space or not. If yes, then you might as well have to do this. Then comes the second thing, which is during the attack. So attack is in some stage. We are seeing these early alerts, which is called as an indicator of compromise, or indicator of attack, or an indicator of a pivot. It is yet to become a compromise. So what we are supposed to do? We need to engage our hunting team, or we need to tell that the customer has to hire people, not only for operations, but 1 or 2 people have to be given a responsibility of threat hunting, which means they will be given some leads with which they have to investigate more into the available data in a given time before the attack evolves from a IOA/IOP to an IOC. And we have already discussed this in the previous session, that how the threat hunting team enriches by going to various places to find out that information to enrich an event. And if the event is classified as a IOC, they will feed back that's into the security operation systems response mechanism. But if it is to be ignored because it's just a false positive, then they will tag it as a false positive and it will go and sit in the report. We've already discussed this. So threat hunting also collects the intelligence because it will start hunting for more data. Then comes another important things, the third party global feeds. There are many threat intelligence feeds provided today, like BlueLive is there, WebRoot is there, Kaspersky is there, Alien Vault OTX is there, IBM Exchange is there, VirusTotal is there. The most important part is that some of these threat feeds or recorded future is there. Most important thing is that some of these feeds are pushed towards the customer, like BlueLive, like WebRoot. So what these feeds which are pushing to the customer are doing, they came to know by some place in the world about a bad thing happening. And any bad thing as per MITRE, MITRE, can have 7 different possible attributes: an IP address, a URL, a domain name, the payload hash, or what we call it as a hash file, the technique in which it is launched, the tactics with which it is launched/propagated, and the procedure it will follow, so which is called TTP. So any one of these 7 things, if understood, we will be able to understand an attack, or we will be able to classify it that yes, this is a potential attack somewhere happening. So when they come to know, these global feed vendors come to know about something, about any problematic issue which they see anywhere in the world, they start harvesting that information and start pushing that information towards their customers who have subscribed to that service. So that's how the threat intel feeds work. And when they are doing it, they are putting them into these classifiers which I've told you, the IP address, the URL, the etc., etc. Some very smart vendors, they will use all the 7 and will further enrich them in their own mechanics and will give it to the customer, which means they will be just not sending the data, they will be sending insights. Data is giving these 7 attributes for each event, that's it, who appears to be problem. But intelligence is somebody putting some kind of a data science on the top of it and start sharing little more intelligence information than us. So we will see all the category of vendors in this space. And I will not name them to differentiate, you can learn it yourself. Because this session is going to be public later, so I don't want to name anybody, which gets classified in which space. But you will get to know once you start looking at them. Then, so this is within the attack. So you get to know if you see also something bad and an IP address is there, which you are doubting that yes, this could potentially be an issue, but you cannot take a call on bad IP alone because it has not yet done anything bad. It's a header problem. And that could be probably abnormality than the others what my machines are seeing. But when I see that, yeah, the same problematic IP has been also recorded by recorded future or by BlueLive or by WebRoot. Yeah, it is a problem by WebRoot defined as URL. And not only WebRoot saying, but also recorded future saying. So imagine now, multiple people are talking bad about the guy and you will get to build more intelligence on the top of it. And that's what is called an enrichment process by virtue of these threat intel feeds. Now, there are certain other feeds which offer, the other type of feeds, which offer the inputs not by pushing their feeds to them, but you can query them. Like IBM. IBM is something called as a threat exchange. So we can query them. Virus Total, sponsored by a very large conglomerate in the world. And many people do it. Shodan. So all these independent agencies, they offer a query-based system. They will not push the intelligence. And we know that when we are hunting something and we need to query that, we will go and fetch some more input about the problem I am seeing in the event of the ongoing attack, and will hunt some more information from these third-party tools, which are globally placed, to enrich my understanding as a threat hunter. So these two feeds of the global world helps either in threat hunting or collecting the intel feeds which are being pushed directly to us. Now, once the attack has finished itself, the crime has happened. So what you need the forensics of that. Because for sure the damage has been done, but you would like to avoid that happening again. And COVID-19, we can get a very simple example. We all know that COVID-19 entered into India only by some flight touching down from a global place. It is not a self-born within India, on the land of India. It has traveled from some other land. And in our preparation, maybe you will see that even the lockdown is over, you would see that the global flights are not allowed to land even after this lockdown is over. Once the existing infection is contained, because nobody wants to take a chance of another flight touching down from anywhere else and bringing this back into this large population of people. So same way, forensics helps you, that you close that the surface which is exposed. But then will come another important question. Can we, so from COVID-19 we can learn a lot for the cyberspace. Can we actually continue with this for how many more weeks? And with an ambition of raising our GDP to the kind of values we wanted, can we actually afford to continue with not letting any global flight touch down? No. It cannot be indefinite. It has to be put up some date. And the date we start, again, we are in the same problem. So same way, sometimes, even if the forensics gives you enough evidence that yes, my 443 port has brought this into my organization, or my 445 port has let this infection spread from one laptop to another. Can you stop 445 port in a Microsoft environment? That's the next question. If I stop that, I might as well not exist as a business. So lockdown may not sustain along. You will do a lockdown so that you have a better strategy. So forensics gives you all these answers. And you match those answers with your business compulsions in the cyberspace, and then accordingly take the actions. And also, sometimes when you were in the incident, though the incident was happening, not all, forensics gives you a scientific data. Please understand, okay? It gives you scientific data. But incident response team also collects the statistical data. And every statistical data need not have a scientific evidence. Statistics means, yeah, I saw 15 laptops within 10 minutes crashed, man. Now, there is not enough scientific evidence to prove, but there is a statistical event which has happened. So this intelligence, which comes beyond a forensics data, because if the incident response team is also using the forensic science to give you an output, it's great. It will fall in that bucket of 5, the intelligence number 5. But what additionally the incident response team brings in is the clinical understanding or the observational understanding. So there is a scientific knowledge and then there is an observational knowledge. And both of these will help me in the post-attack scenarios. So this is my intelligence footprint, that how will I learn from all this and augment my telemetry. What are those? So if I'm planning or designing a SOC for somebody, I will look on these possibilities. But how many exist with the customer and how many are in the gaps? And when we see that gaps, how we are going to fill that gaps. And every gap to be filled will require money to be spent by the customer. So therefore, you'll have to be very consciously working. But you need to have cover all these 5 spectrums when you are designing a current generation SOC. Then you will see that whether your current SIEM tool or the tool which the customer already has procured, okay? When I say current means, because the SOC has been into business for 2 decades, we all know that. So must be the customer has already invested something in the past. And we always preach a philosophy to the consultants, and when we go to our customers, they can very easily see that we are the trusted advisors to them. We always try to take care of their existing investments until and unless they are absolutely obsolete. So you will figure it out, but this is a very important engine. The customer needs to today have artificial intelligence because it has its own advantage to support the people. So we'll ensure that in the security analytics, because we are not just leaving to correlation rules. There has to be some degree of dynamic behavior. And we know that the biggest question customers today ask, which you guys have to know, that once you start proposing this, they will say, hey man, will the artificial intelligence help me in the prediction? Answer is no. I am not selling a concept of predictive security. That doesn't work. You can never ever so easily predict the intention of a criminal. It's human. It's a hidden thought. Same way, you cannot so easily predict. But then what we are trying to achieve? We are picking up those early cues, and that cannot be classified as prediction, which means the attacker is already in some state of an attack. If he goes to dark web and start buying our data, which belongs to me, because somebody has stolen that data in the past without my understanding and has published it in the dark web, and somebody has started to download that from the dark web, and I get an alert, I cannot ignore that. And that will not ignoring that, but taking it to the next level of analytics is what is not a predictive analytics. Here, I'm not predicting a crime. I am only knowing that somebody has started in a crime already, man. And let's do that, is all what we are trying to say. So nowhere the artificial intelligence is going to predict the crime. Predicting the crime means not even the event has not happened in the dark web. Even the event has not just started. There is no absolute trace. And my SIM is expected to deliver an output. No, it will not happen that way. But the artificial intelligence that a security analytics engine will bring in, it will start picking up those early cues and will not miss them. But if I go to a normal correlation tool, can I create those early cues by just the regular expressions? No, I cannot. Can I crowdsource a correlation engine? No, because correlation engine needs a static equation. While a dynamic behavior is, if 500 people are doing this way, they are all having a read access to this file. Why somebody is trying to do a write access to that? That's anomaly. And that could be a very light, very light event. But somebody has done that, I should immediately put it into IOA in my metadata. But I will not alert it until I will understand that, yes, it's a real issue. This is the power of artificial intelligence, which is supposed to be used. Okay, so that's the security analytics engine that is on the top of SIEMs, and the ones which are like Splunk, Logarithm, or the current generation SIEMs, they are bundling this together. That's how they started the SIEM space for themselves. But the old generation tools, either they are acquiring their new companies or they have evolved their existing or the past tools to deliver this. But the ones who are delivering this artificial intelligence as a composite function called security analytics beyond just the correlation rules are the ones who are going to succeed in this market. Now come the last thing. So we have covered 3 things so far: the telemetry, the intelligence, and the importance of security analytics beyond correlation. And what is this? The security orchestration part. If you see the first half of the slide, which is on the top, in year 2000, 2001, we started to collect the logs / packet / flows from the networks, endpoints, and applications. When I will say network, means network security devices, inclusive of that, endpoint and endpoint security devices, applications and application security. The only thing which was happening in that was the dashboards and the reports. That's it. But in the orchestration, just look at the lower part of the slide. The diaphragm kind of line, which is dividing these two parts of the slide. The lower half of the slide, it says that we are collecting the same data, but we are working on the traffic anomalies, the indicators of attack, by a function or a mix of supervised and unsupervised machine learning. And this time, in our inclusion, not only the endpoint, network, and applications are into consideration, but also we are picking up the lateral movements and the data flows. Extrusion. Extrusion means the data which moves out from my office to outward. We are collecting IOCs in the form of thread feeds. And we are also focused on not just the structured data, as I told you in the yesterday's session, that the text written messages, the images, the videos, the clips, the flash, they are not the structured data. They are unstructured data. But they also have very strong emotion or intelligence or an expression. And we are using all these now, not just to report, but also translate this understanding into a machine readable threat intelligence, MRTI. When we are doing this in the form of a machine readable threat intelligence, we can send that intelligence at the machine layer itself without requiring a human being to come in between to another machine to consume it and act. So that's how the orchestration / automation happens. That's the bottom line. We all know that to communicate with each other, we need one language and we need one medium. Right now, the language I'm using is English because what I speak is what you all can understand. And if I use my mother tongue, maybe some of you will not understand that. And if you start responding or asking questions to me in your mother tongues, maybe I will not also be able to respectively understand your questions. So we have arrived at a common understanding that we're going to use a common language called English in this session. The hidden understanding. Similar way, we need some medium. Currently, we are using a Zoom as a medium. But when we are in the face-to-face, and I'm in the classroom session, for example, then we are using the air in that room as a medium, because that's how the voice will move. So we will need a medium. Similar way, MRTI is a composition of two things. One, a common language is required because the machines will be built by different OEMs and for different technologies. Like in next generation firewall, you will have multiple OEMs. Then next generation firewall is different than next generation IPS. Next generation IPS is different from next generation AV, and so on and so forth. So there are some 300, 400 different types of things which happens in this space. And then there are almost 7 to 8 vendors for each one of them. So you are having a matrix of some 2000 elements to deal with. And you would want that one should be able to talk to each other seamlessly when they are all publishing the information, called the threats intelligence. And for that, two things will be required: a common language and a protocol with which they can exchange with each other. So this is how you need two things which we have explained yesterday also, the 6 and Type-C, or an equivalent of that, which can deliver both and is understood by all of us as the machines. So this framework of machine-readable threat intelligence came into being in 2013, almost at the same time when the Generation 3 SOC started. And this particular MRTI became an actual sense that, okay, let's start orchestrating everything. Let's start automating everything, which was then not very easily acceptable. But automation and orchestration is a very important element in this space. And when combined with the other things which we have discussed, telemetry, the threat intelligence, and the security analytics, if we constitute all of them together, will give a matured understanding along with people called the next generation SOC. And that's how the next generation SOC is printed. You guys have seen this slide maybe 3 sessions before, some of you. Now you will see that I'm going to explain that maybe a little more strongly. So let's place our understanding, whatever we have learned so far. So on the left side of the screen, you are seeing a telemetry. You have security gateways like firewall, IPS, URL filterings. You have deep packet inspection engines like IPS, antivirus, anti-APT. And you have authentication controls like Microsoft AD, or administratively for the tools, PIM and PAM. Then there is a secure DNS. Then there is internal security controls like the internal firewall and an IPS, or a VPN, which is for data integrity. And lastly, some of those tools like DLP, DAM, and file integrity monitor for data security. All these will send the data in the form of some logs, which they natively understand. And on all the blind spots, I've already explained you that you put the tap with the sentry, because there is a blind spot and I can't collect the data from there for whatever reasons. So you will put a sentry there, and in the sentry will be hooked on the top of a tap. We already explained there in yesterday's session number 1. So these logs or the data received from taps will be analyzed by a big data security analytics engine, which is SIM plus security analytics put together. And what it is going to give? An indicator of attack / indicator of pivot. See that arrow, IOA/IOP. And this comes to another platform now. So the analyze function, which is BDSA, let's go back to the empirical equation of the SOC. It is going to deal with something called as time to detect. So whatever logs it has collected and the tap from the sentry data, whatever it has collected, it will churn all this data, and depending upon the anomalies based on the machine learning or the triggers from the correlation rules, those are embedded into this system, it will give the output as indicator of attack or an indicator of a pivot. The second platform is called as a Managed Incident Detection and Response Platform, MIDR. This MIDR/SOAR, okay, so let's put it this way. In QoS, we coined this word, Managed Incident Detection and Response, while Gartner says it is SOAR, Security Orchestration and Automated Response. So MIDR of QoS slides is equal to SOAR of the global term, okay? So don't maybe so far I was using those names. Maybe I have just introduced a new name, but don't get confused with it. It's more of a QS slide. These are very dear slides, so you will see QS stuff out here. So it's not for sales. It's just like to explain you that MIDR is equal to SOAR. So these are two same things. So on this platform of source/MIDR, what are we going to do? We are going to do three things. First and the foremost is we are going to enrich these IOAs/IOPs from global feeds and some open source intelligence/dark web intelligence. Then we are also going to see the data of vulnerability assessments or the penetration testing, the XML files which are collected, and those DDoS simulation inputs. All will be fed either as a file or an API channel directly to enrich it. So don't look at the arrows of the global feeds and VAPT. That doesn't mean that those arrows are firstly going into OSINT and OSINT is bringing this data into this. These are just logical representations. All three, that is global feeds, OSINT, or a VAPT DDoS simulation data, will help me understand my risk posture and the readily available IOCs, that is indicators of compromise which the world is seeing, or the techniques, tactics and procedures which the world is seeing. They will be fed into my platform called MIDR or SOAR. The real-time local intelligence in the form of IOA and IOP will come on this platform, and a global threat intelligence / the posture understanding of my company's infrastructure by virtue of VAPT and DDoS simulation exercises which we have done, and also the pre-attack understanding, if at all, is available in the dark web / open source intelligence. One more thing which I missed in the intelligence, which I will like to correct because this slide is helping me correct that when we are talking about a pre-attack information, not only the attackers go to the dark web, some evidence is also available prior to attack on the open source systems also. So, doing a simple Google will help you understand that yes, there are some attacks which are there. Or sometimes you can actually buy some Google specific services if somebody is just searching your critical email ID on the Google. So all these inputs are called as open source intelligence inputs. So they also are part of the web pre-attack intelligence, which I missed there. So I'm correcting myself. So that's why web as well as dark web, both, whatever is available in the open source intelligence frameworks, will pick up that intelligence along with the dark web intelligence. And the second thing what we do now we will set up a triage. In a triage strategy, we'll say that if my platform scores above 8, go and write a rule directly into a router called access control list, or write a policy into a firewall, write a policy into a web application firewall, or write a new signature in antivirus, write a new signature in anti-bot, or write a new rule for blocking in the URL filtering, whatever it is. And for doing so, the framework which will be used is machine readable threat intelligence. So that means you can formulate an action. Whether you want to automate it by directly pushing them into the way it is shown in the slide, or you can actually triage it by saying orchestration and writing a new ticket in the help desk system, which means you are not going to directly write into a firewall, but you are going to create a ticket, a service ticket in the service desk. You can read, if you guys are not aware, something called as service desk or ServiceNow. ServiceNow is a SaaS platform. Service desk is more like a, you can read more of service desk, your IT help desks. So these are readily available tools where the tickets get created and a workflow starts. So they will launch, they will trigger a workflow. That's what I'm meaning. And in that workflow, they will actually give a machine learned information which can directly be pushed into the intelligence system of the device on which this is supposed to be pushed. And in the same, if the scoring is not 8, which means my confidence is not very high as a platform to suggest, prescribe, or act with a defined action, I need more inputs. So we will give it to a hunting team. And that's where we will evolve our system. So hunting team will understand, oh man, the attack has already happened. You only saw a small part of it because we had a blind spot. So we need now forensics. And with forensics, we have understood, oh, attack has already happened. And the compromise is already there. So let's write a IOC that yes, this from beyond this phase, this is the problem, and or fine tune the blind spot. Or subsequently, if the attack is already going on, then the team will figure out, oh man, let's block this IP address, or let's have this hash file, so that we are not letting this to propagate on other machines and become the infections, the hidden infections. Or they will just generate an alert by writing it into the report. So all this is what exactly summarizes so far whatever we have done when we move into our customer space. Now, having that as our framework, 1 minute, let me see. So now we will quickly see how to start a project. So the first things we do is we'll have to do a as-is assessment. So this is one of the customer, data, you can say that when you go for an as-is understanding, the first thing you will figure out is what's their telemetry, from where we can collect the logs. Yeah, they have access control devices. These all come under access control. They have a checkpoint, next generation threat prevention. They have a RCOS PIM. They have an active directory of Microsoft, and they're using some checkpoint VPN clients. So we will collect some data from here. Are they really having any threat prevention solutions? Yeah, they were having, let's say, next generation threat prevention. They were having Sophos antivirus suite. They're having Content Keeper. Same way, we will figure out, okay, do they have a day zero security sandbox solution? Yeah, they have a FireEye, Trend Micro, anti-phishing. So all that has been captured. Then, do they have the network behavior analytics tool? Yeah, they have. But do they have a SIM? No, they don't have. Not deployed yet. But we are going to propose that now. Do they have a user behavior analytics? No, they may not have. Do they have a data leak prevention solution? No, they don't have. So this way you start doing an assessment as a consultant. Then are they having a DR site? Yes. Are they using any manual incident response? Yes. Do they have an automated response? No. Do they have 24/7 monitoring? No. Do they have any emergency response team? So something like that, we figured it out, yeah, by having a basic understanding. It was much deeper than what you have seen, okay? That was just like to show you that, yes, we need to do some telemetry assessments and to figure out whether they are using any intelligence, whether they're using any people processes in place, so that we can consume those existing setup. And then virtually we give them a score for each one of them, that, okay, what's their level of posture? So maybe they got some score like 6 out of 10. And this is absolutely mathematical modeling, okay? It is not that okay, our score is better, and if some other consultant comes, he might give them 6.2 or he might give them 5.5. So whose score is great? No, I cannot say that yes, we are better than anybody else. But what we are trying to say is that this is more generic picture. You will look at what they've scored. Then what we will have to see is that into their business positioning, we have to tell them that your current score will put an SIM, and you will, let's say, take a Splunk, and then you will put a SOAR platform, and you will be able to get a better scores. So you decide what journey you would want. Only Splunk and leave it with the Splunk dashboards, or also include the SOAR. So this is some kind of a mathematical modeling we will do as the consultants. And then based on this, they will decide. Because as I told you, these are two tools. You might as well want to, as a company, if you are a, let's say, company to whom I am proposing this, you might want to put it into steps. And every step is a cost. Cost plus operations and stabilizing those operations. So you will decide whether what is important for you. And then you will take a commercial proposal. And on the base of commercial proposal, you will decide what solutions you are going to take. So for example, now, this is not necessarily, I'm not saying that this up to this place is obvious, okay? You are supposed to do this. But then this is what I'm just putting it beyond obvious. But this is very specific to me, for example, or this is very specific to QoS. We might have proposed this solution like Splunk on SIM, MIR of QoS, and then putting some customer SOC of its own and putting some QoS expert services. So this is beyond obvious. Why I'm saying beyond obvious? Because this step is going to be as per the consultant's choice. Not necessarily everybody will pick up this combination. Okay? But whatever might be the impact, whatever might be the decision, the impact is going to take you up, as a company, as a customer. Okay? So you might say, okay, we'll take a emergency response team. We might take a user entity behavior and analytics with the EDR, or you might take SaaS and CASB security separately, dark web intelligence harvesting separately. So these are, I just broken, but everybody at least will take SIM plus MIR with 24 cross event monitoring as a common objective. In the step one, and other 4, they will say, no, we will park it for the next phase. This is what the customer decision was. This is one example I wanted to show. Second way I would like to put it on this slide is that this is just notional for you to get to know that we have done so much of exercise. Where will it end? This is where it will end. But beyond this, I can't explain you because of the confidentiality that what exactly is the overall solution. But this is how typically a consultant output will come for the business team to take a final action. So they have not gone for other 4. They might have gone for other 4 as well. But if they would have gone with the line item number 1, it's because they've gone with QoS, they've seen this. If they would have gone with somebody else, they would have seen something else. And another customer, which we have just concluded, they've gone with a different combination on the line item number 1. And they have already decided to go with the EDR. So it's no more futuristic. There's already one name there, which they have already taken. And we're going to combine this along with this. So this is how typically, when you come as an output, you will put check marks as to, okay, what all the customer has taken in the current state. But as a overall generation 4 SOC or a Cyberfusion Centre, you would need this. And this is how a fusion will finally look like. This is nothing but using all these, whatever the customer had, let's say these all tools, okay? When all these tools are published in this layout, this slide becomes the same thing. So if you read it, it's absolutely the same thing. So if you see in the telemetry, we have collected logs from all these. We have put it into a Splunk big data, then IOA, IOP. are going to a QoS MIR, and in the thread feeds, we are using Bluelay, Webroot. Also, we are using open source. There is no dark web as of now. And then this is going to be enriching. You're using reconfiguring routers, firewall, WAFs, antivirus, antibot, IPS. And also there is a hunting. For hunting, integrated with IBM Exchange and VirusTotal. So these are just putting some names to what so far we have discussed as a framework. So we have come to the last part of our slide. So far we have discussed setting up the SOC for a customer. But there is a parallel business which is going on for last 2 decades called the managed security services provider business, which means the companies who have actually been delivering the managed security services like a SOC readiness for the customers. So they send the logs directly to the service provider and the output goes back to the customer. So if you look at their architecture, it will also be similar. But every service provider typically knows that when they will be working with the customer, there will be some blind spots. And since their business is managed security services provider, which means they are going to provide the SOC services on behalf of the customer's own infrastructure teams. Instead of that function is outsourced to these companies. They always know that there will be blind spots. And for those blind spots, and for collecting the data, even from their security controls, they need to provide some on-prem log collectors or on-prem sentries to cover those blind spots. They will become a part of the telemetry strategy. And then in the analytics, they will also set up some SIEM tool like Splunk Enterprise Core with Splunk and SIEM apps. The only important thing you guys have to understand that in this analytics tool, most important thing which is applicable to these guys who are in MSSP space but are not the SOC customers themselves, is that they have to have a multi-tenancy features. Because they are going to collect the data from multiple customers, they need to segregate the data per customer basis. And that's called as a multi-tenancy readiness. In the intelligence, obviously, as a service provider, I need to have a larger pool. I just can't have 1 or 2 then. Because some customers may want more options. So we'll bring a lot of people here in this space for intelligence. In the incident response, every platform vendor of MSSP will pick up some SOAR platform. But if QoS is a MSSP, we will definitely go with our own MIR only in the response. The analytics is giving a time to detect options, and the incident response is my platform for time to respond. So we all know that, yes, these are 2 different tool pillars. We have just finished that discussion. Then any service providers, they set up a process, and typically they follow something called as ITIL practices. So you guys can do a Google search. So ITIL is like a standard frameworks which are being given for service providers and many other customers also for their own infrastructure, if anybody wants to follow them. So it's just like having a 6 Sigma strategy for software development. So, the same way you have some maturity models for doing the procedures. So you know that these are the kind of events you're going to be dealing with. So those 15, 20 types of use cases, you put up all the playbooks or the run books for them. Then comes the people. In the people, a 24/7 SOC team with the subject matter experts will be required. Still, there is a possibility that the customers which are getting serviced by this MSP, they might have the incidents that will not get covered. So they need to put the residual risk management teams, which are of two types, the hunting team and the emergency response team. We knew that yes, when the attack is already happening, then you need to hunt, and also there is a likelihood that the situation might go out of control, so you will need the emergency also as or a rescue team procedures. So as a service provider, we need to cover entire spectrum. Maybe as a SOC team guys, when a customer takes a security operations center, they may not require all the elements on day one. But if you are a MSSP, or if we are a MSSP, we need to have all these elements in the right structure, in the right framework, like the way it is depicted here. Some of the service providers are also bringing cyber insurance element beyond this. So if a MSSP brings in a infrastructure security, it also says that with all putting everything together, still there is a likelihood, maybe to the degree of 0.1 to 0.01% only, the probability does exist that there will be a data breach, my dear customer. In that reason, I am going to cover you for cyber insurance. And a cyber insurance means if the data breach happens, I will as a service provider will backline with the insurance companies who are who validate that, yeah, we are a good company. If we are doing a security operations for my customer is much more safer than the customer alone. And they know that it's a business alliance between us and insurance company. So they know that, yes, if this company called QoS is doing this security operations for the customer X, and the customer X is having these many assets covering this, based on the QoS report or any other third-party report, they will be able to do a very easy premium calculations. So in the cyber insurance, the most toughest task is to calculate a premium. It's a very complex and a very deep subject. I leave you guys again with the thoughts. But as a MSSP, there are vendors who are differentiating themselves with the value-added services, because all that whatever has been shown before cyber insurance is definitely a must to be there objectives. But value additions beyond must to be there, which is good to have for some customers, is the cyber insurance framework. Last but not the least, this is how the MSSPs will set up their teams. So they will have a shared team of L1 engineers. They will put some shadow. So some numbers are shown that for every 4, you will put 2 shadow engineers. So this is how you will build a 24/7 engineering framework. And then you will have a customer level 2 framework. Also, that level 2 generally works in the 9/5 shifts. And then you will have some very subject matter experts, like, there will be a very specific incident response experienced person. The person will the purple team skills, he will be also there. Maybe in our case, in QS, we'll have a Splunk engineer because our entire setup is going to be on Splunk. Then the data center security consultant. So people who have an understanding about how a data security looks like. So even E2, E3, E4 are subject matter expert roles. And then you will put the numbers depending upon the volume of each one of these, whatever is required. This will be all led by a QoS SOC manager, like for example, or MSSP SOC manager. And there will be different interfaces towards the customer management teams, because each customer will have their own individual teams to take care about. And every MSSP, once they finish a month or 2 months and 10 months or 15 months, they do a data analytics. So data analytics is basically to give the reports, and these reports are always evolving, evolving needs. So more and more you talk to your customers, they keep on telling new requirements. So you keep on fine tuning your reports. So therefore, every MSSP on the top, what you're seeing is a QoS data analytics and app developers team. So they basically will be working in the customer feedbacks to incorporate that in the way the security is expressed the function is expressed towards the customer, or their inputs are consumed by the system. At a very high level, this is how the primary site, secondary site of the customer will be picked up. Then so primary site and a DR site is with reference to the customers. So we will have the sentries, the taps, and the SIM collector machines to collect the logs from these remote locations and bring them. So typically QoS uses a checkpoint sentry, so let me tell you that whenever we are using, because we have been much equipped to understand that technology because of our history and our relationship with the vendor. So if we are going and setting up a SOC, and the customer needs a sentry, and the customer is willing to buy from us, if all these three conditions match, then most likely we will only sell the checkpoint sentries. And then all these will bring the logs and data to SIM, which is in the cloud, and then we put the operations from that cloud to, let's say, in QoS office. So this is how a typical MSSP setup is done with respect to the customer at a very high level design. This brings us to the last part, which is thank you. And the reason you must have seen that in the last couple of slides I have rushed, because these are very QoS specific sites. So you guys can learn that separately in your respective sessions in time to come. This session is getting recorded for generic public also, so we wanted to keep that information minimum with respect to QoS. I believe you guys would. I assume that you guys would have enjoyed the 3 series event on security operations, and I'm sure that you will have many questions. You guys can push those questions to me. Some of you have pushed the questions of the previous sessions which we took in the previous week. So I will collate all these together and publish it to all the attendees once we finish these series. So I'm left with one more series that I'm going to do next week. I'll keep you guys informed. That will be much shorter version. That will be more on the cyber kill chain. But we are going to finish this security operations and the prior series of security controls today. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope you guys will stay safe in these tough times and enjoy your remaining part of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.